people, welcome back to my channel. So today we're actually going to talk about moving back in with the parents. Yeah, so I was actually planning on doing a moving out video first, which yes, I'm going to do that. However, I got some feedback from people and a lot of people are moving back home. So I didn't really think it would be appropriate to be like, oh, moving out, when that's not actually what's happening in society with individuals like myself. I thought I fixed this well, and I guess I didn't. Oh my goodness gracious. If I start playing with this during the video, I apologize. Okay, so, moving back in with the parents. Okay, so let's just do like a little brief thing. I am not moving back in with my parents. I am blessed. I love my parents dearly, but you know what? We're gonna dive into it. Anyway, yeah, so I moved out when I was 18. Now, this was pretty, common. If you were going away to college and you had a competitive major, actually, the original plan was to commute from home. But, because my major was pretty competitive and I had rehearsals really late at night and the school was about an hour away from my house, my parents, we made the investment to let me live on campus, and it was supposed to be like, you live on campus to get better grades. So that was the agreement. And if you don't get great grades, if you party all the time, if you're not responsible, then you're moving back home and you're commuting an hour to school. That was the agreement. So that's what happened when I moved out. And I actually really enjoyed my experience living. I didn't live on my own in college. Like, I had roommates, but I liked my experience. I did actually end up moving back home for a short period of time in between my internship and receiving my first full-time job. I did not want to do it, okay? I did not want to do it. I was very upset about it. Because, I don't know, think about it. Psychologically speaking, my room stayed the same, the house stayed the same, and it was like I developed all of these skills and I learned all of this new information and I experienced all these different work experiences and clinical experiences, and I am a professional now, but I don't feel like a professional, I'm staring at my walls in my room that haven't changed since, I was in high school. So it's like, even though I actually changed, even though I actually have the knowledge, and now I'm a professional, and now I have my bachelor's degree, and I'm looking at grad schools, it's like, I feel like I'm 16 again, struggling in physics and pre-calc, because nothing around me has changed. And so that was one aspect to the depression of moving back home. And I know a lot of people say, oh, change up your room, repaint it, redecorate. Well, I didn't want to redecorate my room because the plan wasn't to stay there for that long. And I agree with that for anybody out there who did have to move back home or who is moving back home. If it's just because the office is closed, or it's just because of the pandemic and everything that's going on, and you don't intend to stay lived at home for that long, I mean, I understand that we're not really sure, at least here. We don't know when the offices are opening back up. They could open up in January, they could open up in April, they could not open up until next January. So we don't know, but the point is that if you start redecorating your room, and I mean painting it, buying new furniture, buying a rug, actually investing in redecorating, that's not gonna help you move out. So if your intention is to stay at home for a short period of time, or stay at home until the office reopens, or stay at home until things become safer to live with roommates, my advice is to move a few things around. Maybe put a poster up on your wall, or maybe when I moved back home, I ended up getting a I forgot what the name of it, but a diffuser. I ended up getting a diffuser, so a little ambiance in the room, and like, so that helped it kind of change it up a little bit. I moved, I have like a lounge chair. I just moved it to a different section of my room, again, to change it up, but I didn't make major adjustments. So, and I would advise you guys to do the same if you're living at home for a short period of time. And it is psychologically draining. You can redecorate, but that's probably going to make you stay at home longer. And I don't know, that wasn't my goal. Maybe that's your goal, but that definitely wasn't my goal. So anyway, so that's from like a psychological standpoint, what I was experiencing from looking at the walls. Now we have to dive into the parents and possibly your siblings. At the time, so my brother is younger than me, so he was at college when I was moving back home. So it's not like we were in high school everybody living in the same house yet again. So what happened was, it was just me and it was my parents, which was something that, again, I never really experienced because I'm not an only child. And then, and I was feeling like I was 16 again, and I'm not 16. Are you gonna yell at me if I stay out late? Are you gonna yell at me if I go out to happy hour? Like, are you gonna yell at me if I call out of work? All these things start coming into my mind. So I ended up having a talk with my parents, my mom in particular, because she's, believe it or not, she's actually stricter than my dad when it comes to going to work on time and calling out. And not that I intended to call out, but at work, there's at times when you just need a break, and you have those days, you have those hours to do so if need be. So anyway, all that kind of stuff. I just didn't really know what was going to happen. So we ended up having a talk, and my mom said, you're an adult now, you lived on your own, she's like, I can't judge, if you go out, not that I would do this because I'm not that type of person, but she did give the example of if I went out and I stayed out until 2 a.m. and then I had work the next day, that's on you. If I stayed out until 2 a.m. continually, and then continued to call out of work, again, that's on you. So that was kind of the intent. I was in a relationship, so it's not like I was gonna be dating. I think dating might have added another layer to it. If I was dating multiple people, but since I was in a relationship, that part didn't necessarily get brought up. So that's something to take into consideration. If you're moving back home and you're dating, you should definitely bring that up in the sense this is what I'm gonna do, or this is these are my intentions and stuff like that. One thing though I will say, because I'm Armenian, we're not allowed to do anything prior to marriage. So, and even though you can, how do I say this appropriately? You can spend the weekend with your significant other and nothing will happen, because that it's not uncommon for you to spend the weekend with somebody and not do anything. I think about married couples. How many times do they spend the weekend together and then not do anything in that regard, right? So that's that could happen. That could also not happen. But with my parents, it was you can't. He can sleep over, but not with you. And unfortunately, you know, you're in your parents' house, you have to respect it. I didn't really, we haven't really had an issue with that, to be honest, because it's kind of this, like, we come from the same culture, so it's like we get it. It's not, like, if it was an American guy, they probably would have flipped, but, like, since like, we're from the same culture, it's not like it really, we get it, because both parents are kind of the same, if you know what I mean. I also heard other cultures too, it's kind of similar, where, you know, sometimes the couple could be engaged, for example, and they go to the parents' house for the holidays, and they're not allowed to, like, sleep together, you know, or sleep in the same bed, or watch TV with the door closed, like, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it sounds horrible, because it's like, oh, you're an adult now, you're in an adult relationship, but, you gotta respect your parents, and I think it made it a lot easier because my man is Armenian and he can emphasize, yeah, we gotta respect your parents and whatever the case may be. So, but that's something to keep in mind, because if you're dating and, like, that matters to you, or that matters to somebody that you're dating, or that matters to somebody that you're in a relationship with, maybe they didn't come from a traditional family, that definitely could present problems. So I just wanted to put it out there. It didn't present problems for me. It definitely didn't present problems in the relationship. I'm not going to dive into it, but just know that it didn't. But for somebody, it might, okay? This topic makes me uncomfortable. Okay, so, moving on, I think it's just important to understand that when you move back home, you know, you developed your lifestyle, you had a life, you are an adult, you have responsibilities, you have bills, even though you're living at home. I hate when people think that you have all this money because you're living at home. You do not have all this money because you're living at home. I still had to give my parents money for things, and, you know, and I still had to, like, pay for my own groceries and pay for gas and the car insurance and all this stuff. I was probably saving, how much, let's just think. Well, rent, I'm always like, rent's $1,000, but no, it's not $1,000, it's $2,000 here. So, like, oh, I'm saving $2,000 to $3,000 a month on rent, because I'm not paying rent. But then that money goes towards something else. Like, and for me, it went towards student loans. So it's like, you're not really saving any at all. So that's something to keep in mind. People think that when you live at home, like, you're saving all this money because your parents are, well, you're living for free, your food's for free, all this stuff, but it's not true. Like, if I went out with my girlfriends, I still had to pay. I wasn't getting money, you know, to go out. And then, like, oh, you know, yeah, I wasn't paying for rent. Yeah, I was saving $2,000, but that money went towards the student loan. So I really wasn't saving after all. And this is kind of an argument, you know, my family gets it and the people close in my life get it. But this is more of a stance I had to do with work, because a lot of times I would ask for a raise and they wouldn't give it to me, or I would go for another job interview and I would ask for a certain salary, and then they'd ask me, like, oh, well, are you living at home? Which, like, it's so inappropriate for them to take that into consideration, or for them to even ask you, but that is what happens. So, like, just keep it in mind that you are not saving all this money living at home. You are not, because the money that you are saving tends to go to something else. And if you don't have student loans, then it ends up going, like, money is a tricky thing, because there's times where you can, I could talk about this all day. There's times where you can save money, like, instead of going to Whole Foods to buy my produce, I go to a local farmer's market. Okay, that saves me a lot of money significantly. But there's times where it's like, okay, where do I get gas from? Do I get gas from like a more expensive place that's like on the way to work, or do I go out of my way to get cheaper gas and then you end up spending the same amount regardless? So when it comes to living at home, you end up spending the same amount regardless, okay? Keep that in mind, because the money that you save on rent usually ends up going towards something else. And that's pretty much, as an adult, that's probably the only savings, right? Because you still have to pay for gas, you probably still have to pay for food, you still have to pay for car insurance. Maybe you're not paying for renter's insurance, but what is that, $100? Like, I bet you the moment you stop that renter's insurance and you stop paying $100 a month, I bet your car is gonna need maintenance, and that's gonna end up costing $200 a month. So do you get what I'm saying? Like, and that's kind of something to keep in mind, because I think a lot of people get kind of confused, especially employers. They think you're saving a lot moving back, but you are not. And that's another intention for you to move out as soon as you can, safely and healthy, because you are spending the same amount regardless. Food for thought. Actually, it's backed up by facts, because I did calculate this. Okay, so we talked about relationships. We talked about the psychologically speaking. We talked about the parents briefly. We talked about the money. Yeah, but I think honestly, intentionally, when you move back home, you do lose independence, because you do have to consider the other people living in your house. And there's a difference between living with a roommate, living with a partner. Like, yes, there in those situations, there are other people living in your house. In my situation, there is another person living in my house. So it's like, you do have to think about these people. But when it's your parents, it's a little different. Like, if your parents go to bed early, like, yeah, you have to be quiet at night, but then sometimes they'll want to know, like, what you're doing or where you're going. And yeah, so that kind of adds another layer. Or like, if you, like for me, if I stay late at work, which happens a lot, I'll get out of work an hour or an hour and a half after I'm scheduled. I don't text anybody. Like, they know that I'm at work. My man knows that I'm at work, and I probably had to stay late, and then I get home when I get home. But with your parents, sometimes they want you to text you. They want you to text them, and how are you supposed to text them if you're at work? But, you know, so like, that's what I mean, where you do lose a sense of independence. But I think that the best thing to do in this given situation is to really talk it out with your parents and tell them, like, this is my life, this is what I plan to do. Like, I have got, you know, I'm just going to use an example. I get up 2 hours before work and I go to the gym, and that's what I do, you know, or I, you know, sometimes I have to stay late at my job, and I'm not going to be able to text you about it. You know, like, so you have to set these boundaries, and you do have to say, like, this is how I was living my life before, so I'm going to continue living it this way. And there are times you are going to have to respect your parents, because it is their house. Like I mentioned with the dating, you have to kind of respect them in that regard. But, you know, the more, I think, honestly, my parents were pretty good with, like, okay, you know, this is how she's living her life, and we're just gonna, like, let her, because she's not hurting anybody, she's still being responsible. I understand not all parents are like that, and I've seen parents be very controlling, even when you set your standards and you set the stage. If that's the case, I mean, start shopping. You know, you can shop. It might take, because we don't really know what's going on, like, it might actually end up taking you 6 months to a year to find a place. So you can start shopping now. But those are like the tips that I think you need to like set the stage, tell them like, this is my life and this is how I continue to live my life, and these are the things that matter to me. You know, going out, boyfriend, girlfriend, dating, you know, studying, applying to schools, and that's what I did. I didn't necessarily do the whole going out thing, but, you know, I tend to run late to work, or I tend to get to work early, or I like to go to the gym in the morning, I like to go to the gym at night. Like, you have to say what you like to do and how you do it. And this is how I do it, and this is what I like, and this is what I'm going to continue to do. And, you know, you're respecting your parents because you're living in their house and you're following their rules to some degree, but they also have to respect you because, yes, you are an adult now. You know, you can't give somebody who lived out, in my case, I lived on my own with roommates, but, you know, on my own for like 4 years before moving back in with my parents. Like, you can't tell me that I have a curfew. You can't come into my room and wake me up for work because, like, I've already been doing that. So, like, they have to respect you as much as you respect them because you're living in their house. As I mentioned, it's not always the case. So these are my tips and tricks, and if it doesn't work in your situation, then I would say start shopping, because we don't really know. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's never too early to start shopping, especially since we don't really know. So those are, I don't know, that's like what I'm sharing. On a personal note, you know, I lived with my parents and it was fine, I guess. I don't know. I didn't really, I just didn't like the space because it was hard to concentrate. That was like the main reason why I wanted to move out. So I stayed there for a short period of time. I applied to grad schools, I toured grad schools, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to focus on homework in my house with my parents because they can be kind of noisy. And then the tip of the iceberg, the straw that broke the camel's back was when my parents decided to order Chinese food. We don't like order food, okay, that often. My parents decided to order Chinese food and they didn't ask me. Yeah, it's time to move out. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back, because it's like, okay, like I could have worked and lived at home. I could have been with my significant other, continuing our relationship while moving back home, but I could not go to grad school while living at home because there just would have been too many distractions, because my parents can be kind of loud, and then once they left me out of ordering food, like, that's just common courtesy, man. I mean, my parents never had roommates, okay, so, like, they didn't really understand that, like, you ask your roommate, like, if they want food, you know? So, but anyway, that was, like, the tipping point, and that's when I was like, yeah, it's time to go. But I guess, like, in my situation, it's, I rather that situation than my parents not respecting me, because I did have a few people who their parents still tried to control them, even though they were adults moving back home. So I wish you all the best of luck in this journey. I hope that things get healthier and safer, because believe me, it's taking a toll. Even though I didn't move back home, it's still taking a toll on my personal goal to buy another property. So I understand, like, it's not the same, but the feelings are still there. The anxiousness, the frustration, the impatience. I'm a very impatient person. So, yeah, so I get it. I get where you're coming from, because I'm experiencing the same feelings, even though the situation is different. And I really hope things get better, and I hope we can continue living our lives and being professional adults. And I think it's I personally think it's stupid that it's become normal for recent grads to move back home. Like, I blame money and I blame jobs, because that was never the case. You should get paid fairly in order to live on your own. You shouldn't have a load of student loans forcing you to use rent money towards the student loans. So, like, I think that this whole thing is very not right and not fair and not appropriate. I could preach about it all day long. So I disagree with it, okay? But there's nothing I can do to change it. Like, school's really expensive. You have to take out student loans. You have to get a degree. Yeah, like, you're gonna get paid minimally when you get that entry-level job. You're gonna have to move back home to pay out. Like, so there's a lot of factors that have to get changed, but personally speaking, I think it's ridiculous, and I do not condone it, even though I had to do it. So hopefully, I really hope things get better, and I hope we can all stay safe and healthy, and I hope you can all have your independent places soon, sooner rather than later. And I still shop, even though I know I'm not going to be moving anytime soon, unfortunately. So I encourage all of you to shop, because it's fun shopping, and it's fun daydreaming, and it's fun to have that goal in mind. Even though there's no set target, you still at least have a goal, and you're still doing something towards that goal. So anyway, that's the story, friends. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you guys later. Bye!